Thank you to Kenzie Bruce for his incredibly generous support on Patreon. Sheoldred the Apocalypse versus Mishra, Hidetsugu, and Freyalise. One land tempting. If we get into a swamp for the Burnished Heart, that wouldn't be terrible, but yeah, there's no guarantee of that, so we will mulligan. And get into the Ancient Tomb and the Dark Ritual again. Damnable Pact might be very valuable here, so we'll just have to try this one, I think. Don't tend to get into really good hands with Sheoldred, but oftentimes you just tend to do very well anyway. Draw into Murderous Rider on turn 1. We'll just play out a swamp, not going to worry my opponents too much. Allosaurus Shepherd. Just lands from my other two opponents. There is an Animate Dead that makes me want to be more aggressive with this Dark Ritual now. We can go for a swamp into Dark Ritual into our commander, which I think is fine, especially with Animate Dead available to us. We're obviously up against a couple of Rakdos players, which will likely have a lot of removal in their deck, but we can test them at least. And the elf player curving out very nicely, a Priest of Titania and a Gaia's Cradle, so who do our opponents see as the threat here, I wonder? Maybe could encourage the elf player over towards us and take us out. Prized statue for the Mishra player. That will come in and make a treasure token. Yep, and at the end of the turn, a Terminate goes onto the Sheoldred, so we will not put it back into the command zone. We'll just try and get as many swamps out as possible here, I think. Hold off on the life we'll lose from the Ancient Tomb. Animate Dead onto the Sheoldred again. We're not getting into any of our draw pain stuff, unfortunately. Wow, and now a Nick though, Shrine to Nick, so yeah, the elf player really going off over there as well. A Freyalise Lenoir's Fury can get rid of the Animate Dead. Instead deciding to go for an Elf Druid token. Unmarked Grave now. Putting a non-legendary card into the bin. And with that, they've gone for Reassembling Skeleton. A Pirate's Pillage from the Mishra player, so using a treasure to do that, but then creating a couple more. And discarding a Noxious Gearhulk. Alright, so we draw our first card into Sheoldred and gain 2 life. Draw a Myriad Landscape. So we could swing through to Freyalise. I'm thinking that we're just going to have to use Murderous Rider or Swift End on the Freyalise and then maybe feed the Swarm on Priest of Titania. But we might be able to get them to block with a Dork as opposed to taking the damage to Freyalise. So yeah, we'll swing in and try and get rid of an Elf Druid token. And yep, they do throw a token in the way. That's really good. That's exactly what we wanted. They still, if they'd taken the damage to Freyalise, they still could have taken that down and got rid of the Animate Dead, but they have missed their chance here. So now we can slam down an Ancient Tomb. And that can be Feed the Swarm onto the Priest. It means that we're not going to be able to get rid of any enchantments now that this has gone down. But I think it is worth getting rid of Priest of Titania whilst no one else is. Problem is here that we're opening ourselves up to spot removal from our opponents, but it looks like they're looking in our direction anyway. So we'll just have to leave it at that. Got a loose plan of ramping over the next few turns and getting into the Damnable Pact. Alright, now seeing an E-Witness. So grabbing back the Priest of Titania, 3 cards in hand, and they can afford to get down the Priest again thanks to that Gaia's Cradle. So haven't dealt with the mana issues over there yet. Toxic Deluge for 1 wouldn't be bad. Tormenting Voice from the first Rakdos player now, and they discard a Torgar, then casting a Swiftfoot Boots. So likely that we see the commander with a Swiftfoot Boots equipped to it next turn. Terminate coming from the other Rakdos player now onto the Priest of Titania. Our opponent's obviously seen that we're not doing anything too crazy with the Sheoldred, although how long's that going to last? Then going for a Tormenting Voice of his own, these two Rakdos players seem to be copying each other, discarding a Scarecrow, and then a Mere Retriever. So now it's our turn, and we draw into a swamp, we gain 2 life, so yeah, could go for 4 mana into a Damnable Pact. We're not doing anything else here. I don't think it really matters if we get down the Murderous Rider. That's not going to do much either, so yeah, as much as I'd like to dump more mana into it, drawing 4 cards with a Damnable Pact seems fine. I don't imagine that the Sheoldred is going to last another turn cycle here. So we draw into a Signing Blood, a Veto, and a Wound Reflection. Not the best cards, but they're not horrendous either. And then I'll continue to show my opponents that I'm after the elf player here. I'll just focus on one player at a time. Freyalise seems to be coming in towards us anyway, so might as well swing in towards there. If they get the Freyalise down and tick down on the Animate Dead, then, well, I think that was always going to happen. Playing out a basic, going down to 3 cards. Aura and Frostfang now, so they're looking to draw some cards. 2 cards in hand and they'll draw 2, no doubt swinging in at us with E-Witness and the Shepherd. Noteworthy that they will lose life to the Sheoldred when they do this, so at 29 at the moment, about to lose 4 life. For whatever reason, didn't hold up any green mana, so maybe they don't have many mana dorks in the form of Llanowar elves and stuff. Hidetsugu coming into play and being equipped with the Swiftfoot boots, I imagine, so exactly what we thought our opponent was going to do. Can't activate it, thankfully, so yeah, we'll have to see if they manage to scry something big onto the top that can get rid of our Sheoldred. And they swing in at us as well for 4 points of commander damage. Rakdos Signet from the other Rakdos player. Alright, and amazingly, make it round to our turn again with a Sheoldred available to us. An extra planar lens is very good. Just debating whether or not to go for Signing Blood before the veto, because we might draw into Teferi's Puzzle Box or something like that, but not sure it's worth playing around. We'll get down the extra planar lens first. Don't have any counter magic to worry about, I don't think. So always get rid of the tap land with the extra planar lens. Make maximum use of your mana. And now our snow-covered swamps tap for 2 mana. Always go for snow-covered for those of you who don't know, so that our opponent's basic swamps don't tap for 2 mana. If we'd just gone for regular swamps, then it would affect these as well, but luckily none of our opponents are playing snow swamps. Get down the Bloodstained Mire and turn it into a snow swamp. So now we've got 8 mana. Get down the veto. And the Rakdos player isn't holding up priority, so I'm going to guess that he doesn't have any interaction for us. We will lose 2 life, draw 2 cards to the Signing Blood, which will gain us 4 life after that with the Sheoldred. Okay, and there is a Cabal Stronghold. We'll point our damage at the elf player again. Alright, and now the Mishra player is deciding to do something. That's a Chaos Warp. That's not going on to the extra planar lens at least. Managed to. That's really unlucky. Managed to get us into a Vilis Broker of Blood. So veto still triggers once we gain the 2 life. And yep, that goes in at the elf player as well. So then, I don't think we particularly care about getting down Murderous Rider. Might as well just put the 2 floating mana into the Allosaurus Shepherd before that deals any crazy damage to us. So, yep, we lose 2 life and draw 2 cards. Okay, and seeing a Jet Medallion, a Crick Son of Yawgmoth as well. I think we just hold up our 2 mana and draw, it'll be a total of 4 cards with that. So yeah, pretty unlucky from our opponent. Usually the Chaos Warp, 90% of the time when I've seen it played, it just gets you into a land. But yeah, probably the worst flip of Chaos Warp they could have got there. If we can have Vilis stick in play through this next turn cycle, then the Crick is going to draw us a hell of a lot of cards with it. A Soul Ring, even more mana from the elf player. Seems to be more mana than elves in this deck. Okay, there's some deals going on here, so this player is saying that if you swing in with the Aura and Frostfang over here, he can block with the Mere Retriever and bring back the Noxious Gear Hulk, which will blow up the Vilis, so they're obviously looking to do that. It all depends on whether the elf player is paying attention. Might just be mono green good stuff actually, because I'm not seeing too many elves. A Voyaging Satyr, then Vivian Monster's Advocate into play. Creating a 3/3 beast will likely have reach thanks to the Vilis. No, instead giving it Vigilance, so maybe they are looking to swing in the Aura and Frostfang over at the Mere Retriever. And yeah, looks like he did read the chat. So a 2/1 Death Toucher, swinging in over at the Rakdos player. Now I have put a stop during my opponent's turn here. Their time is ticking down, so apparently I've done it in time. What we can do here is go for Vilis and put -2/2 onto this, so that it doesn't kill off the Mere Retriever. Did they not block? Alright, okay, so in the chat it's saying that he blocked, but... or he's saying he blocked, but... not according to the client he didn't. So are we about to get screwed by the client? What I would do is put -2/2 on this. There's no need to do it if he's just hitting our opponent, so... yeah, hopefully it's not the client being screwy. Yep, managing to hit both players, so drawing a couple of cards. Still has the guy's cradle available. So it looks like it was a misclick from the Mishra player. A Fierce Empath from the elf player, what we assume is an elf player. Tutoring for a big creature. And we see an Apex Altasaur. So when that enters the battlefield, it fights a creature you don't control. And when it's dealt damage, it fights a creature as well. So that is going to be pretty much for the Villis, I would have thought. Soul Ring for Hidetsugu as well. Then Sorcery Speed, Unexpected Windfall. Discarding a Swamp to that with 3 cards in hand. Reanimating the Reassembling Skeleton. Can sacrifice it, but cannot go for the 3 mana ability with this. Deciding to sacrifice it and scry 2. So they'll have to take their draw step into account unless they want to activate this during the upkeep maybe. So now the Mere Retriever is just going to swing in instead. I don't think there's a means of us having the Villis survive here. We'll just have to make this player tap out for the Gear Hulk. So they do respond by blocking there. So pulling out the Gear Hulk into his hand and then hard casting it. Make sure that he actually targets the right creature here after the misclick previously. And yeah, it does manage to target the Villis, so we'll go after -2/-2 onto the Satyr. Can't abuse the guy's cradle too much then. So we lose 2 and draw 2. And that takes us into a Dark Deal. Then lose 2 and draw 2 again into Night's Whisper and a Saison. And we will gain life from the Noxious Gear Hulk here. And our opponent ends the turn at 30 life, a 5/4 construct, and the 2 cards in hand as well, but everyone's pretty much tapped out here. There are treasure tokens untapped over here. Okay, so we draw into another land. So what do we want to do here? We're seeing the Apex Altasaur next turn, so probably let that come down and kill off a bunch of our stuff. Let our opponent get down some stuff with this, and then we're just setting up for a damnation pretty much. So let's play Jet Medallion. Play a Swamp, so there we've got 10 mana available. Then put 3 mana and 6 life into a Crick, Son of Yawgmoth, which we don't have any protection for whatsoever, unfortunately. Take 4 life to the Sheoldred, and that is 3 generic mana. Puts a plus counter on the Crick. Then we can have each Rakdos player go down by a card here with the Dark Deal. Would really have liked to get down the Wound Reflection, but don't have the mana for it here, unfortunately. And if we go for the Dark Deal, then obviously we can't go Damnation next turn. So let's just play ourselves a Dark Deal here, just for the fun of it. We'll pay 2 Phyrexian mana for it, and 1 generic. Each player discards all the cards in their hand and draws that many -1, so we look to gain a lot of life here. Our opponents will lose some life as well. And of course, whenever we gain life, the veto will trigger, so we'll see what life total our opponent's on by the end of this. Looking over at the elf player at the moment. Okay, so this player's down to 15, so that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and 14. Don't quite have them, unfortunately. But we do have a Lightning Greaves available to us. What we can do here actually is swing in with the Crick, gain life, and point the life we've gained with the veto trigger over at the elf player. I think that will be the play to make here. So that means if we've got our opponent on 3 life, all we have to do is gain some life with the Crick and point that over here. So this player is on the most life, so we'll do it over there. Play ourselves a Lightning Greaves. Throw that over to the Crick. And then I suppose we can get down Master of the Feast here with the 1 generic mana and obviously 4 Phyrexian life, and then we can still hold up Defile. Oh, of course, this costs 1 generic less, so it just costs 4 life. But that does mean that the Crick can now survive against the Hidetsugu. So, yeah, we just go through like that. Maybe we can get down the Murderous Rider here as well, actually. That will cost 4 life as well. Might as well gain some more life with the Crick. That takes it up to a 6/6. And yeah, we're still holding up Defile as long as the Crick stays in play. So swing straight in down the middle. Don't want to see the Noxious Gear Hulk go into the bin again, just in case they can reanimate it. So we hit our opponent, they go down to 16. And with the life gained, we can have Veto take care of the elf player. And there we go, no need to worry about the Altasaur anymore. Now I think I'll leave the Lightning Greaves on the Crick because we can make use of this to get the Sheoldred back out again if needs be. And I do want to hold up that Defile, so I'll just pass the turn like that. Noteworthy that this has lifelink as well, so if we decide to block with that, we can throw a bit more damage around with Veto. Our opponents continue to lose life whenever they draw a card. And if we can get through to our next upkeep, then they will draw a card to Master of the Feast as well. A Sifter of Skulls. Didn't see what our opponents discarded previously actually. There's Soul Channeling in the bin, a Judith, and a Bajuka Bog. And we see over here a Quicksmith Genius. There's a Cathartic Pyre as well. Well, each of the Rakdos players at one card in hand, reassembling skeletons into play again. And they can afford to sacrifice that, scry something big onto the top and then activate this thing. But obviously have to get through the Lightning Greaves if they want to go after Crick. Sifter of Skulls makes an Eldrazi token when they sacrifice the skeleton, reanimating the skeleton again, and then going for Scry 2 yet again, so hunting for a board wipe maybe. Probably not going to make it through another turn cycle here. I imagine the Grey Merchant of Asphodel clinches it for us. So it doesn't seem as though our opponent had any luck in being able to deal a bunch of damage with this, and there's too many threats on the board now anyway, I think. Yeah, looks like my opponents are looking to deal with the Veto for obvious reasons. Unfortunately, we have seen the back of Wound Reflection, like I said, so the Veto is going to be pretty imperative to us, I think. And there we see a Blasphemous Act. Did they really just rip that off the top? Excellent. So, yeah, there's no point going for the Defile then. It's a shame that we don't get to go for refilling our hand with a Decree of Pain, but apparently this game's going to last a bit longer yet. The Murderous Rider gets put on the bottom of our library. Sheoldred can go into the command zone, and the Sifter of Skulls will make another Eldrazi Scion. Yeah, that was a really good top deck from my opponent because they were likely going to lose next turn to the Gary. Obviously with Veto in play, us gaining life would have allowed us to chuck a bunch of damage around. I think we were on about 14 or 12, 14 pips of black mana, something like that. Anyway, Mishra, Tamer of Macphawa coming out for the first time on turn 7, which means they do have access to the Noxious Gearhulk again. Have to hope that we can hold on to the Lightning Greaves. Okay, into a Vamp Tutor. Can't draw into the thing unfortunately, but we can get down our commander here at least. So recasting the Sheoldred and putting the Lightning Greaves on there for protection. And then do we want to sacrifice a land for Defile onto the Mishra? I might rather put the Defile on this thing, to be honest. Grey Merchant isn't doing a whole lot for us now thanks to that board wipe. Yeah, I think we're just holding on to Vamp Tutor and Defile. There is a Scarecrow here which they could also get out the Noxious Gearhulk with. The Mere Retriever is in there as well, but yeah, there's not much of anything else to be honest, and they've only got one card in hand. I'm just going to risk not making use of that black mana, and we will swing in towards the Hidetsugu. Try and encourage them to block with that Eldrazi Scion so that they don't have as much sack fodder. So they do chump block with that. And now I'm assuming our opponent is near enough going to tap out into the commander, and I'd be tempted to go for a Defile onto it. They lose 2 life to the Sheoldred and the draw step. So yep, seeing the commander once again. They have 1 card in hand, 3 mana held up after the Swiftfoot Boots. So I think we do go for Defile onto the commander. Just need to hope that this player doesn't get anything really good into the bin and is able to unearth it with Mishra. Reanimating a reassembling skeleton in response to that, so they will be able to scry 2 in response to this. I'm hoping the Vamp Tutor, I'm not sure what to grab with Vamp Tutor, but I'm hoping that it can get us into a decent number of black pips or means of refilling our hand, so that we can obviously have cards in hand and make the Grey Merchant relevant again. Now time to see if another excellent top deck occurs here. Got more chance of drawing into something there. Draw 2 and create a treasure token. They have discarded a Synod Sanctum, so losing 4 life to the Rummage effect. Got themselves into a Darksteel Citadel and 1 mystery card. Then unearthing the Scarecrow, sacking the Scarecrow to draw a card, so losing a further 2 life to that. They shouldn't tap down the Mishra by attacking into us. I'll see if they want to block our Sheoldred. during the turn here, because I'm thinking of going for the memory jar, something a little bit different. Could go for Peer into the Abyss, but that's a pretty typical line of play, I think. Memory jar's slightly different. They decide to not swing in correctly, so at the end step, unfortunately for our opponents, there is a Vamp Tutor. I'm sure they've felt very unlucky this game. I appreciate them playing it out because there has been a bit of good luck involved here. So we'll tutor out the memory jar. And we do draw into the memory jar, of course, gain 2 life during the draw step. And then we'll throw down a swamp. The extra planar lens hasn't had any removal on it this game, thankfully. So might as well go Grey Merchant of Asphodel before we look at a new hand with the memory jar. Grey Merchant going to drain our opponents for 4 and dip them below that 14 life we need them to be at. Then we play the memory jar, and this we can sacrifice and have everyone draw 7 cards after they exile their hand, which is obviously the aim here, is draw pain, so we'll put 7 triggers on the stack for ourselves and 7 triggers for each of our opponents, and that has resolved alright, so just a case of seeing if the client wants to actually allow us to put the triggers on the stack. It was goofing up a little bit there. Alright, but our opponents just decided to scoop it, that's fair enough. We drew into Gaia Reach Sanitarium, we've already dropped a land this turn. Bolas's Citadel we probably get down if for some reason we don't win there, but obviously we do. And on top with the Bolas's Citadel was a Cryptghast for some more mana redundancy in case the extra planar lens goes down. Alright, so there we are, another game in the bag with Sheoldred the Apocalypse. Got off to a pretty risky fast start, but drawing into that Animate Dead I think really helped us, and I think our opponents went a little bit easy on us in the first few turns, but there was a really good elf player to worry about, so can be forgiven for that. By the time spot removal has been flung around in the first few turns, sometimes you just don't draw into it again. If you enjoyed the video, then please consider donating on Patreon because it does really help to support the channel financially. I do spend a hell of a lot of time making these videos, and any help that you can give me on that front makes it a little bit worthwhile. If you can't, then no worries, just be sure to leave a like and subscribe. That will help with YouTube's algorithms if you interact with the channel. Hope to see you next time. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.